welcome to Tech Law Talks. I am Anthony Diana, a member of Reed Smith's Tech and Data Group. In each episode of this podcast, we will discuss cutting-edge issues on technology, data, and the law. We will provide practical observations on a wide variety of technology and data topics to give you quick and actionable tips to address the issues you are dealing with every day. Hello, this is Anthony Diana from Reed Smith, and welcome to Tech Law Talks. Today, we're going to start one of our podcast series on AI and legal departments and what legal departments should know about AI. And today with us is Daniel Broderick from Black Boiler. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Anthony. It's great to be on with you.
So Dan, let's just start. I think a lot of legal departments are being asked by senior management and otherwise that they should start using AI. How can we use AI? We want to be more efficient. So if you could just start with what you're seeing in terms of what legal departments should be thinking about when they think about what AI can do for them.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So since the news about ChatGPT and OpenAI and all of this stuff hit the cycle since I think almost a year ago now, it's been a massive uptick in people reaching out to us, and I'm sure other AI companies as well, wondering what they can do and what problems they can solve and wanting to experiment with AI. In Black Boiler, we started around 2016 is when Black Boiler started. We're a company, we automate high volume and repetitive contract review and markup. So we like to work with companies that review and mark up a lot of contracts, sometimes on counterparty paper, and companies that have playbooks, quite frankly. This is how we want to do this. We do a lot of it. And so when we founded ourselves in 2016, it was kind of in the last hype cycle of AI, which was interesting. And we started going and we would talk to people who had put together kind of like the AI board or, an AI advisory committee within the organization to explore. And the thing that I would advise people to do is to be thinking about AI not as a separate standalone product, but what pain points do you really have right now?
Yeah.
And with these pain points, are there AI products out there that can help solve them? Because then
it's the focus on the process, right? It's the focus on the business process. And can you automate something in that process and maybe leverage AI, right? It doesn't even have to be AI, but that is
right.
One of the things that I think a lot of people forget is it's a tool to help a process, not the other way around. So
exactly. Our CTO likes to say that it's only AI until it works, and then it's just another tool in the toolbox, right? So I would say that, and then I would continue to look. Don't change your before all this hype about AI and ChatGPT or general pre-trained models, and more generally, people were looking to solve problems, and I'd say continue to look to solve problems. In fact, double down on looking to solve those problems, those same pain points. Just open your eyes to and learn about if AI can help you solve those problems, right? And the AI that's going to help you solve that problem isn't always going to be generative AI. It may be some other type of AI that's maybe not quite as new or been around a little bit longer, but is custom built to solve a very specific problem. What I think is really amazing about the current space we're in with AI and the current developments that we have right now, and I say this, but the market's changing so fast that you could listen to this podcast in a week from now. What we're saying is going to be different. It's going to have change. It's going to be changed, and I don't think anybody's clairvoyant and knows exactly what's going to happen. But what's so cool about the current AI is how quickly you can build a product and solve a problem to about the 70 or 80% threshold, right? It's really good at getting there. And then if you have to get over, so you can prove points, you can prove a use case. But then when you're trying to squeeze out that last bit of performance, in some places you're going to have to move away from generative AI. But in other places, generative AI is going to be tremendous. Let me give you an example, right? Say, and I'm going to stick in the contracting space because that's what I know. I know really well. Say you're a CLM provider and you have a ton of executed agreements, right? And maybe you're a sales organization. So you need to know, ahead of time, you need to know every single renewal date that's going to be in there. what types of notice provisions you have, if you have any sort of increase, all of those things. You're going to be able to have that information. Now, you could use generative AI to do that. You could also use other types of transformer models that are going to get you a little bit better accuracy to do that. Where Gen AI is going to be really powerful is when you have those ad hoc queries you have to do against all of your entire contract database. Think back to like the pandemic in 2020 when people all of a sudden had to get their hands wrapped around what type of pandemic exclusions do we have in our contracts or in our force majeure clauses, right? And nobody had built out these models previously to identify this. Well, generative AI will be able to do that pretty darn well. Maybe not as well as some other types of AI that are currently exist out there, but it will do a great job for you at getting the 80 to 85% threshold that you need to get to.
So Dan, let's talk about this a little bit because I do think everyone's focused on generative AI, but let's talk a little bit about how you've been using AI already in contract management, because I know that's a big, whether it's machine learning or otherwise, but I think some people don't understand that a lot of the contract management systems out there have technology that solves a lot of the problems that you're looking for, right? Like whether it's contract lifecycle management, whether it's I need to update a certain provision and the like, and you're looking for those provisions. So if you could do a primer for what are you already doing using whether it's AI or other technology in the contract space?
Yeah. So at Black Boiler, we're expressly not a CLM, right? What we do is we try to automate negotiation. So where we've been using AI is in how do we decide in a new contract that comes in that has to be reviewed by an organization. We have to essentially make 4 decisions about that contract, right? We have to say what in that contract is acceptable, what has to be rejected, what needs to be revised, and what's missing, right? So we answer those 4 questions, and then with accept and reject, that's pretty simple. Not simple. It's just it's accept or reject. It's a binary, right? Like it's either you put the text back in the document untouched, or you put strike through track changes code around the text, right? What's harder is how do I revise this text to make it come into compliance with our standards? And then if there's text missing, it's, well, where does it go in that document, right? Where's the appropriate place for it to go? And there's a lot of stuff that goes around where does it go, right? Like I need to make sure I'm using the right defined terms when I insert our thing. I need to make sure I'm using the right numbering structure in the document that I'm inserting it into, right? And the right tab location, all these other things. So all of that is difficult. So we use a bunch of different things, right? When we bring in a document, we have to just chunk that document up into pieces. We use some pretty simple stuff there in a whole text processing pipeline. Then we go in and we figure out who the document is talking about. We use some stuff called named entity recognition in that process, along with some custom built tools that we've built internally ourselves by our computational linguist PhD, Dan Simonson's built some stuff. And then we're using some, when we compare text to other texts that we've looked at in the past, because that's how Black Boiler learns. We learn by comparing what is under analysis to what the client has previously reviewed and edited, right? What's really interesting about Black Boiler is we're using historical work product as the machine learning annotation, right? Track changes is annotation data, right? And we use that to train our systems. So we're using all sorts of different types of language models. We use some BERT, which is a large language model, which is not a generative model, but it is a large language model. We use that. We also use some older stuff as well that's been around for a long time, TDF, IDF type of stuff, which is term frequency, inverse document frequency for doing certain things. And what we do at Black Boiler is we use the simplest thing that works really well. And for each step of your text processing pipeline, that might be something else. But what you need to be able to do is have a processing pipeline where you can experiment with each individual step. And as new technologies come out and new techniques come out to solve different steps along that path, you're able to swap those in, experiment, see if you get better results. And if you do, use that new technology. And that's kind of where we are right now with some of the GPT stuff.
And I would assume in terms of what you're describing the process, I think it's important is that this is not a one and done type of thing. Like if you're using these types of, whether it's machine learning models, whatever, it's if you have to always constantly update, change it, and the like, as you said, to get better performance. I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about just even in terms of if people are thinking about this, how much does it depend on, like you're saying, you're looking at contracts, but do you have specific, I don't know if it's templates that are like for specific types of contracts? So you may have vendor contracts, you may have customer contracts, like, so for each type of contract, I'm assuming you would develop your own model in terms of what's required and the like, correct?
That's right. So a really easy way to think about it, Anthony, is like if you have a playbook or a rule set, we
Yep.
basically train by playbook. So a lot of times we're
Hmm.
like, we'll have an NDA playbook, right? We'll have a services agreement playbook. We'll have a playbook for our data protection agreements, right? So that's
Yep.
what we're doing. You might even have more than one. You might have a playbook for our services agreements under 50,000, and we might have one for our services agreements over 100,000, right? You're like a little bit different flavors of what you're going to do. Sometimes people even do this as geographic locations.
Yep.
We have a playbook for North America. We have a playbook for Europe. So that's how we develop it. And again, like we're trying to mimic human performance, right? We're trying to just do what you've done in the past. Be that junior associate, be that junior counsel person who's reviewing a lot of contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's key. So I think for everyone out there, I think it is important to start thinking about it's not you're getting, it's a tool, right? It's like everything else. You've got lots of business processes that you may want to start automating in some way. You've got to define it, and then you've obviously constantly have to update it and make sure it's working correctly because, there could be a change in the law, there could be a change in the regs, it could be a change in how you want to manage that risk. So you change a provision. If you have a new business opening up, it may alter the way the contracts look. So I think all of those impact how you're going to use the tool effectively. Because if you're not monitoring it, you have problems. I mean, that's one of the challenges I've seen, particularly with the machine learning, is if there's a new data set and new changes happen, the tool isn't working anymore. So you have to keep constantly monitoring it. What are some of the other challenges associated with using AI or any of these tools to automate processes?
Yeah. So one of the things I think is not talked enough about in all of this is change management and
Yeah.
how that ties to psychological, like everybody's experience with AI is different.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to have people in your organization who are like any sort of adoption cycle, the early adopters, the people who love it. You're
Yeah.
going to have the people who don't trust it. They don't want to put any of their information in it. And you have to understand that and be able to work with all of those people. But one of the things that I think is just massively important here is if you really want AI to be adopted across the entire organization, you have to take people out of that decision-making process to use it. You have to put it into your existing pipelines in a way that you're not making people make a decision, because then you have to change everybody's behavior across your entire organization, and that's really difficult. Whereas if
Yeah.
you can get things into workflows or processes where that AI is automatically being leveraged and then flowing to the humans, you're going to get much more uptake in the usage. It's automatic, and those results are going to be easier to monitor. You're going to be able to tell, or how much faster things are going to be getting done. So one of the things that we really love at this point with Black Boiler, and I didn't feel this way when I first started selling, because this is the first time I had ever sold was with Black Boiler, was we love to hear when people have workflow tools already implemented. That is a signal to us. This person has workflow implemented. They have a process in place. They are ready to take that next step to say, all right, let's see if we can layer some AI on top of these workflows.
Yeah. And that, again, I go back to it. We talk about people, process, technology, right?
Yeah.
You have to have the right people. I agree with you. Change manager is one of the most important aspects of this because we often find, you probably see the same thing, in terms of workflows, they want to go from A to Z immediately. And you really have to go through each, right? It's not enough that you can say in 2 months we're suddenly going to be all automated. It's a process. And I'm sure it's the same thing. You have to do pilots. You have to test it. You have to have, and again, you have to find, in terms of people, I'm sure you do the same thing. You find the people that are early adopters. You train the tool because there's, as you said, there's clearly going to be frustrations, mistakes. The first few times you use it, it doesn't work quite as well. You have to go back and try it. People get frustrated and say, this is this isn't worth it. Why the hell did we purchase this product? Right? See that all the time. And having people who are willing to try, fail,
Yep.
right? Failure is a big part of the process, right? The first time you do it, it's not going to work great. You have to have somebody doing it. But I think that's absolutely critical in terms of, as you said, when you're trying to adopt any of these technologies, you have to have a good process first before you can start saying, okay, how am I going to automate it? So I think that's critical for this. All right, so Dan, what do you see in terms of the future in terms of how this is going to play out? I mean, we talked a little bit about how generative AI may help, and that's sort of the next phase. But, and lots of people are afraid that it's going to take over the world and all the lawyers are going to be gone because, no one's going to have to review any contracts anymore because AI is going to do it for them. So give us a sense of what you see in the next 5 to 10 years in this space.
Yeah. So I don't know if I want to pontificate about what's going to happen with AI taking over the world, but I'll leave that to some others. But in the contract space, I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, if you're in an organization that is not leveraging AI in your contracting process, you're going to be behind your competitors, whether that's pre-execution or post-execution. And understanding the difference between those tools, what's a pre-execution tool, what's a post-execution tool, is important as well. But you will be behind, and I think that if you're just trying to do experiments right now with what looks cool and is fun to work with, you will not be getting your organization in place to really leverage those tools in the long term, because there is oftentimes a lot of work that has to go into leveraging AI. Like I think about all the time, like the document management systems. People want to leverage their document management systems to help do repetitive work. Well, how do you know what in that document management system you actually want the system to train on? There's a lot of stuff. And if you haven't been super organized within a law firm in this instance, making sure all of your documents are coded properly, all of that information is input into your document management system really well, it's going to be really hard to leverage that data in a way that's helpful, right? Motion for summary judgment in a single plaintiff employment action is going to be much, much different than motion for summary judgment in a bankruptcy case. And you're not going to if you just have a pool of data that says there are motions for summary judgment, and you're trying to kind of leverage that data to improve it, it's going to be difficult. So I think we're going to see quickly who's been really diligent with their data, and we're going to see people who are behind, and then we're going to find out who just has been ignoring it altogether in the next 5 to 10 years.
No, I agree. And look, and I think I would say that if you haven't started, you have to, but it's not, the first step is not try to find the AI tool that I'm going to use. I think, as we keep saying, is let's think about what are the steps we're going to need to take anyway. If you don't have a good process in place, if you don't have a playbook for all different types of agreements, that's what you need. What is a template? What are the key provisions? I mean, I think a lot of organizations have started doing that, but I think, again, AI, you're going to need that to use the AI. But I think one of the things that I think is a danger is people going and buying the product first without having the steps in place. And I think also, I'm a big proponent of AI is not a cost savings. AI is process improvement, which may result in cost savings. But I think another thing that I think people start thinking is, well, I'm going to buy this tool and now I don't need 30 people doing contracts. I can do 5, and that's not going to happen. This goes to the change management point. It's going to be a while. However, those same 30 people doing contracts are going to be better at their job. They're going to be more efficient. And then over time, those same people could be doing something else, right? Not necessarily the work that they don't need to do, right? They're going to be able to do negotiations, right? They could be on the phone pushing back and doing more of that work. So I think that's one of the things that people have to understand is AI is not a cost saver. It's an efficiency, right? It makes it better, and it's probably a better way of doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper, it's certainly in the short term.
I have 2 thoughts on that. It's a great point. We've had clients who have come to us and said, you know what, we want to solve a couple of things, but one of the things we want to solve is we want our clients to think we're easier to do business with.
Yeah.
So even if we don't save money, if we cut our cycle time down and can get back to our clients more quickly, that's a huge value to us, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. The other is you've got that, we work with in a lot of places, but like sometimes we just come across these groups and it's like we have a particular specialization in the architects, engineers, and contractors space. So we do a lot of work in that space just because you're always signing on counterparty paper, almost always in that space. But you'll get these groups like a group that has we've got 4 people reviewing contracts for us, and that's what they do all day long. And Bill and Cindy have been doing this for the last 20 years, and they're going to retire.
Yeah.
And we've got a problem because Bill and Cindy know everything, right?
Yep.
And so one of the things that we say is we become institutional knowledge too, right? When Bill and Cindy retire, when they leave and walk out that door, you don't want all of that institutional knowledge going with them, right? Whereas if you've got processes in place, you've got kind of knowledge capture systems, knowledge management systems in place, and then machine learning and artificial intelligence layered on top of that, that becomes an asset of your organization, right?
Yep.
And it goes exactly to that point that you brought up, Anthony. Like, well, now you've got to find somebody else to come in and hire and train. Well, you're not doing this by themselves. They've got these assets sitting there that can help them do these things. And maybe if Cindy and Bill had retired, you would need to hire 3 people instead of 2. But now you can hire kind of 1.5 or 2. So.
Well, thanks, Dan. I think we'll end here. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully this was helpful to the legal departments out there, and welcome any questions or thoughts. Again, this is going to be part of a continuing series, so hopefully you'll be joining us soon. Thanks, Dan. Talk to you later.
Great. Appreciate it, Anthony. Bye.
Tech Law Talks is a Reed Smith production. Our producer is Allie McCardle. For more information about Reed Smith's tech and data practice, please email techlawtalks@reedsmith.com. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and reedsmith.com, and our social media accounts at Reed Smith LLP on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This podcast is provided for educational purposes. It does not constitute legal advice and is not intended to establish an attorney-client relationship, nor is it intended to suggest or establish standards of care applicable to particular lawyers in any given situation. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Any views, opinions, or comments made by any external guest speaker are not to be attributed to Reed Smith LLP or its individual lawyers. All rights reserved.